These little flower components are really useful to learn how to make as chain links and as separate decorative linking components. I had featured them in one of my books and I'd wired them onto a cuff. So you can see how they can be used. So this is the bead and wire jewellery for special occasions that was published a while back. But they look so decorative wired on to pieces. So they're like little small daisy flowers. And in the book I show how they're created. But if you haven't got the book, I'm going to show you now the different things I've made with them. So you can use them as linking components in amongst things because you can link them from any of the petals. You can suspend them off earrings, beaded earrings, and they just add another little decorative feature. So let me get started. I'm using 0.8mm silver plated gilt wire. So that's 20 gauge wire. So I'm working off the spool. And then you'll need your round nose pliers, and you want to leave just about an inch. And you're going to make your first petal. So you're going on your pliers. You don't want to make the petal too fat, so don't go too far down on the pliers. And every time you make a petal, you're crossing over the middle. So that's the second petal. And then here comes the third, and then you're crossing over on the middle again. And here comes the fourth petal. You're holding it on the same spot of your round nose pliers, crossing over the middle, and lastly the fifth petal. And now you're going to cut it from the spool, leaving a good 6 or 7 inches, something like that. Just a nice long tail. And then take the short cut end and fold it across the middle to hold and secure all that center in place, and cut off any excess so it sits at the back. And then take your chain nose pliers and squeeze and squish down that center bit so it's not too bulky, and you've also pushed that cut end down and inside. And now you're left with a projecting tail or projecting end of wire, which you're going to turn into a spiral. So you want to start off with a little hook, which you squish together like a head pin. So you've doubled up the wire at the end, and then create a spiral with the rest. So you're taking the rest of the wire and pushing it around itself. So it's going round and round, sitting on the outside of itself, creating a flat spiral. And as you come into the center, you want to make sure that it sits right at the center of the petals, and that hides all the workings below. And now you want to adjust the petals to be evenly spaced. So just move them around. And lastly, you want to hammer the very ends, just that curved, arched end of the petal. Don't go to the center because you'll misshape the whole thing. So just the ends, it flattens, spreads, and also you just tap the middle to flatten it down, and that should be enough. And if that's moved around a bit and misshaped, go back, readjust, and there you're ready. Now remember, when you're making these, they'll never look perfect. They're never going to be symmetrical. And if you're going to make a bracelet or a necklace, make them in stages like this. So I've just made all the stage of making the petals, and then I'm going to do the next stage of securing the middle, and that way it goes so much faster, and also you're more likely to get them more similar if you make them in tandem like this, make them together in stages rather than each one finished and complete and then start the next one and finished and complete. By doing the repetition, you're more likely to get them to look a little bit more similar to each other in size and shape. This is definitely not a project for someone who wants perfection. You've got to think it's like a garden. Each flower is going to look slightly different. Each petal will be maybe a bit longer. Each spiral in the middle could be a little bit bigger or smaller. And you have to give in to that. It's all going to be a little bit wonky, but that's half the charm of the sort of organicness of these flowers. So I'm going to work through all of those little flowers and then I'm going to link them together. So you can put beads in between. You can either link them directly together with jump rings, put beads in between for a necklace. See, that's the sort of thing you could do and make a lovely sort of centerpiece necklace, or make a bracelet with a few beads or just link direct. So many alternatives. This sort of linking system for a bead is something that works really well with this idea. So I'm just going to show you how I do that. I thread my bead onto the wire. I create the link on one end of the bead. Then I push the bead right up to that link. Then leave a space, bend the wire to have that space left. You can see there's a little space there. Then create the next link, and within that bit of space I can first of all wrap the wire around, then push the bead up to that wrap so that you can still see there's a gap, bring it across the side of the bead, and then finish off by wrapping it at the opposite end and cut from the spool, and then take your pliers, hold, but just make sure first of all that little cut end is squished down, but hold one end and the other end and make sure both of those circles at each end of the bead, those links, are sitting on the same plane. So you can just see that again. This is a lovely linking system. So circle, make sure it's centered, push the bead up to there, create a space, make another link. It's like a wrap loop really, isn't it? A wrap link. Bring it around, then across the bead. So you have to change hands for this. And then twist the bead to wrap it round at the other end, just under the link or loop. Make sure the end is squished down so there's no spikiness, and then twist those ends so they sit on the same plane. And there you've got a lovely wrapped bead. And now I'm going to put everything together. So I've decided to link it all, but it's too long a bracelet if I add all the beads. So I've just added a few of the beads, and I've made a clasp, and you'll find you can use the clasp to link into one of the petals at the end. And then I've made a little end bit for the earrings, and I'm going to show you in another tutorial how I make those ends. So don't despair if some of your petals haven't worked out. And I'm showing you here, this was a hair vine that I did for a bride. She wanted green in her hair vine with little crystals. So you can see how you can use these flowers on other things. You can put them onto cards, you can put them onto other pieces of jewellery. So from bracelets to earrings to all sorts, through cuffs, it works. They're little decorative daisies that you can embellish your pieces with. So have fun with this project. It does take practice, and don't worry that they don't look all the same. Many thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon again.